Mrs. Olson? Here. Mrs. Sari?
Here.
Mr. Granlund?
I'm here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
And I am also here. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The agenda was posted throughout the district according to school board policy, published as a legal ad in the Superior Telegram, posted in the district webpage, and sent to WNXR radio station for announcement. A meeting notice was sent to the connection for publication. I need a motion for approval of the October 10th, 2022 agenda, open and executive sessions.
Gail, motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Is our consent agenda, September 12th, 2022 regular board meeting minutes you have in your packet. And next is the treasurer's report.
A summary of the treasurer's report as of September 30th, 2022 general fund. In the general account on September 30th, 2022, there was a balance of $4,295,744.26 in cash and investments. Receipts since the 1st of October and not included in the September 30 balance were $34,062.93, and the disbursements from tonight's October 10th board meeting total $221,986.09. In this flexible spending account on September 30, 2022, there was a balance of $22,145.31 in cash and investments. And the health reimbursement account on September 30, 2022, there was a balance of $10,729.86 in cash and investments. In the debt service fund on September 30, 2022, there was a balance of $673.39 in cash and investments. And a more detailed report on fund activity is included for your review in the financial statements.
Thank you, Mr. Landwehr.
You're welcome.
Your payment of invoices is enclosed in your packet, so we will next go to resignations and employment.
Resignations: Nikki Wilson, Mental Health Navigator and Homeless Coordinator. Tiara Lati, Part-Time Child Teacher Assistant at Tiger's Den. Cheyenne Johnson is new since her board packet went out. That happened on Friday. Part-time, 5.75 hours per day special needs paraeducator at NES. Recommendations for hire. Is it okay to go on? Grant Lundberg, part-time high school library paraeducator. Colleen Ruman, part-time 1 hour per day recess supervisor at NES. Cole Mignot, part-time 5.75 hours per day food service assistant at Iron River Elementary School.
Do we have any discussion before we make a motion?
I have a question. I just have a question regarding that position, the mental health navigator.
Yes, that was part of the grant.
That was part of the grant. So that grant money has already been accounted for
And,
this year?
right, and so what we will be doing is being able to rotate the duties to someone who is in ESSER, as well as if he needs some assistance, and the other guidance counselors, part of their salary is offset, which will allow us to have ESSER last a little longer. The ESSER 3 budget.
Sure. But so Dustin Anderson, he's the one who took over for
Laura.
which is a full-time position.
It was always a third of her position was paid for. Now it will be, his whole position is paid for, because there was no funding for the transitions coordinator other than our ESSER dollars, which are much more flexible.
I feel like our counseling positions, we take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And look, I think your budget was specifically for that position. I would like to see that posted. Get someone to do that position for what it was specifically meant for.
That I don't know, because it would obviously just finish out for the rest of the year, because the grant is done at the end of this year.
Right, but
Right.
is there a reason why we're not trying
Yes,
to do
funding.
that? We're not trying to get someone,
Funding is the issue.
but I guess I still, the budget is there for that position.
The budget is there for that position to finish us out for the end of the year. However, we certainly know that our ESSER funds, we'd like to hang on to Dustin's position past this year when there is no funding for it. And so that would be something we may be able to do using the mental health navigator grant funds this year and use ESSER funds next year, which instead would have run out of that position for Dustin, couldn't be there for next year. We'd like to keep him next year if possible, but it was totally a grant funded position through ESSER in the first place. So it's kind of like, let's see if that could last for 3 years rather than 2, which is where we would have been at.
Will we be asking a lot of additional hours than of the other counselors, or?
Hopefully not, but I'm hoping not, because what happened last year is the process got started last year. That was what was critical. Just learning how can we get things rolling for our parents to have to sign up. Because he's not giving the counseling, he's helping with bird dogging parents to have them sign the forms so that they can get in alternate counseling through other agencies. That's what the position was for. And so a lot of it got started, and now over the summer, some of those kids also got counseling, which meant they didn't have to redo all the paperwork, which was good.
So if we find that, because I have no idea, what work is involved in it, and we probably won't know until we
A couple
cover
months
time.
from now, right?
If we find that it is getting to be a lot of extra for the counselors, can we have them kind of keep track?
Yes.
Is it maybe a
Yeah.
possibility that we need to give some additional?
But again,
pay
the
for them?
next question is the funding. As we know, we've gone from 4 sections down to 3 in 3 of our grade levels. The funding is definitely an issue.
If I recall, wasn't mental health and so forth a board goal?
Yes.
Sure it is.
So, I mean, and I don't mean to jump in here, Sherry, but I think,
Okay.
I mean, I've been pretty vocal about wanting mental health, and regardless, he took over for
Laura,
Laura. And I had said, regardless of where we end up with ESSER funds going forward, I would like to make sure that that position stayed filled. However, we're able to manage to do so. So,
I was trying to fill it for one
no,
more.
I understand. But I guess personally, I'm looking beyond next year. That just becomes a position that we, as a district, have to figure out how to fund and manage that. So that's
It's a
where I'm saying.
balancing act.
I understand. And I guess I like to see that people that have been in some of those positions before are willing to do that. He's willing to take those responsibilities on as well, but
Because I was also frank with him saying, my goal is to keep you here for another year past when the ESSER would be there.
Yeah.
So I don't use that, and I fund it a different way, then I've got that for the following year, 23, 24.
and I think, I guess at least for me, the bigger thing is to make sure that we're just not overwhelming our counselors and not being able to provide the services that need to be provided to our students.
I agree, I hear you. The position didn't exist before last year, and that was the goal, to get it started. There is a process, and they now have the process. It's coming a rolling machine now, okay. We'll have to see, we'll definitely have to see.
I just remember the counseling group coming here last school year, I'm not sure what month it was, and talking to us and letting us know what a difference the number of staff that they have for the counseling has made for them to be able to actually do their job
Correct.
and feel the responsibilities of that. And just knowing that as a board, we agreed to mental health support for students as one of our visions from 2025 is from the 22-23 school year. And then also the fourth one on the list was to attract and retain high quality instructors and support staff. You can't go a day today in without hearing something about mental health needs for our students. So even though I see where you're coming from, I would like to see having the staff that we had and then worrying about that next year and making that happen, just knowing we have to make it happen to keep that position.
I'm trying to make it happen without letting anything else go.
I'm really concerned that we're gonna put more on the current counselors that we have right now who are already at full capacity with their day.
And I completely respect that, but I do think we need to do our best, try for a couple months, and I'm meeting with them monthly. They have the first Tuesday of every month, they meet.
Gail, you had something you were trying to say?
Yeah, I agree with the mental health issues. It has become, it's still out there. And I was glad when we were actually having help for our counselors, because it's enough for them just to do what they have been doing previously at their different levels in their schools. So I agree with having, we have to watch this very carefully, because if their load changes, I'm for hiring someone else to fill Mrs. Wilson's position.
Mrs. Olson. I was gonna call you by your first name, but I don't think that's right. In a perfect world, what would you suggest that we do right now? I mean, hire someone, post a job and hire somebody?
I mean, I don't think she was a full-time position,
She wasn't,
but I think she's more than half-time.
correct.
So I think that's a lot of hours to ask our counselors to fill in.
I am contracting with her for up to $1,500, as well as I said, you can go up to $2,000, pay for it out of the grant. So everything that she did for the extra events she planned is not gonna be on the counselors. And other types of mental health navigator duties, how far her salary is gonna go with $1,500, again, up to $2,000 is to be seen, but she's more than agreeable to do that. Because the phone calls to parents are things that happen outside your day as well, when you can reach the parents.
Mike, go ahead.
Well, as a former treasurer, I'm very conscious of the budget, and I applaud your decision to involve the mental health people in this decision, because you did talk to them, right?
I talk to them, however, it doesn't mean that they're not scared of
Right.
having anything, because they don't want to go back to how it was. But Dustin is a new position as of this year, but he's replacing Laura, who was last year. And a third of Laura's job last year was doing this. That was part of it. And we won't know how much the fact that Nikki did a good job of getting the process started, how much that's going to affect this year or not.
It should be smoother the second year.
I would think so.
Quite a bit smoother.
We hope
So I
so,
think we should
because
keep
students
close track
are,
of it, I would say.
yeah, but students are being served. And one of the big things that she had said when we were meeting, Brina was in with me, Mark was in with me with the initial, and then the counselors met after that. Dustin was in with us in that conversation. But the key is how much the summer, staying in with counseling in the summer, which meant they don't have to start over. They don't have to start over getting any paperwork. They're still in, even if it was one time each month, that kept it. So that's a good thing.
Personally, I guess I'm gonna look at it more so outside of the paperwork side of things.
Well, that is what the job was.
Yeah, no,
It was
I mean,
paperwork.
I can understand that, other than
They're to help.
you talk about mental health is, 3 years ago, yeah, we weren't talking about this, the old COVID really changed the way that we look at some of this mental health stuff. At the homecoming game at halftime, the students made an announcement talking about suicide and mental health. The fact that it's gotten to the students to be able to make an announcement like that at a homecoming game tells me that it's an important subject. I appreciate you trying to do what you can to make sure funds continue to go, but I am also going to say I don't want to sacrifice those funds in next year or the year after when the need is still current. And my opinion is we're gonna have to figure out a way to make sure that those funds are going to be able to be used to have that staff.
In a perfect world, to answer your question, Mr. Johnson, I would like to see that position stay as is and not have to have others, have that work be added to others.
So would it be appropriate for you to make a motion and have this board talk about that?
It's not able to because it's not posted.
It would have to be removed from the consent agenda first, formally removed from the consent agenda.
But I don't know that you can make a motion when you haven't posted this as an option. I mean, that would have to be next month. We certainly would put it on, if that's what you want done.
I mean, the way I look at it, you're trying to save Dustin's position.
I am,
So you get what positions are more important.
correct.
Those ones are
And
more
his
important.
is working with kids.
Yeah.
Hers never was. She never
So-
saw a single student.
So if we went back and hired another person for this, then whatever, when that money runs out, now we're trying to save money for two positions. Right, yeah,
That's what.
because when that money runs out, we need Dustin's position every few years.
I saw that as more of a priority than Mickey's. Because he's actually seeing kids daily. Correct.
So Ms. Wilson was mostly doing clerical stuff.
Correct. She was working with parents to try to make sure that she hounded them to get the paperwork filled out so it was not a barrier for kids to be able to be served by a North Lakes Clinic therapist, or Lake Superior health person.
So who's gotta do that work now? The bird dogging?
You would have Dustin would be doing whatever bird dogging, and he said, and it was only if he felt he couldn't, then it would be a conversation with some of the other counselors to see if they know that particular parent.
So somebody's gonna be doing it.
For those that it even needed.
Right.
That was the where, how many, because there aren't enough therapists. So why would you get all the paperwork done and keep bird dogging when the student can't even get served? So that was also part of the issue.
Yeah.
So right now, how full are they is the question for those that we could even get to come. So,
And that may increase in months to come.
I don't know. North Lakes Clinic isn't looking very hopeful. They've given us one therapist and she's full. And those are part of the conversations once a month, the first Tuesday of the month. Are we full? Do you have any spots? As a student gets served, is there another spot open? So those are conversations.
Can we move
I
this?
know services have always been very poor through the area. I just have too much history with that too. So I'm glad that you're meeting monthly.
Mhm. Certainly are.
Very good. Could we move this then to next month?
Absolutely.
That's
always. Yeah. Okay. Peg, you got a note of that? Okay.
Is that included in the motion?
So whoever makes the motion for the consent agenda wants to make sure they include that piece.
I make a motion that we move the topic of the mental health coordinator to the next month's meeting.
Are you also making the motion to accept the consent agenda with that exception?
Yes.
Need a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have the superintendent hire process, and we have a guest with us, Dr. Nick Madison from CESA 12, and he's going to give us a wonderful, informative presentation.
A little overview here. All
I'll
right,
let you speak or do your introductions.
all right, I'll get at it and I'll take your questions as they come up. So what I put together is just a kind of a 2-page proposal here. The first one is just kind of why CESA 12, and then the other one is kind of what exactly the process would look like. which is a very kind of brief sketch of it and what you could expect. So first of all, I thank you for bringing me here. I think that it's a good, when I had kind of the unique opportunity a few years ago to also be leaving a district and coming to another job when I came here. And one of the things that I tried to do, first of all, was to line up the search service to replace me. I think that the reason I think that that's important is it's because as a board, this is probably, I think unquestionably, the most important decision you'll make. It's the most important action you have for everything you do and have been involved in over the years. This is the biggest thing that you'll do. So I think it helps to have it facilitated. I think it helps to have people that have gone through this process multiple times, and we'll talk about a few things of why. I think it's so. I think it's important that you have that facilitated process to help you make this decision. If you look at the first sheet, kind of just the non-stapled one, just a few things about why CESA 12. First of all, we are compared to other search agencies, and there's a lot of them. The School Board Association is certainly one. There are also 3 or 4 probably private ones that are out there in the state that you could look at. So there are other search services. I think that you will find probably the biggest thing is there's a big difference in the sticker price between us and the rest of them. The cheapest one is going to be at least double what we would charge, and many of them are 3 or 4 times as much. So definitely, and the reason for that is because the people that would do your search are CESA 12 employees. None of us get paid extra. This is part of our current job. So in a sense, you're already paying for us, and so that's kind of a big part of it. And we definitely have, I think I'm going to focus on that second bullet point there. CESA 12 has superior knowledge of your district compared to other search providers. That applies to this district more than anyone because you're probably in a very unique spot where if you had CESA 12 do your search service, there'd probably be a team of 3 of us that would do most of the work. And we all just happen to be graduates of Maple High here. So we got that little bit of a unique thing happening. So Amanda Trott and Sarah Nelson would also be helping me with this. So we've all walked these halls and driven around these roads. The next piece, that 4th bullet point, 2-year guaranteed placement. We provide that as well as part of the search process where if the candidate doesn't work out, you haven't had a history of that here. All your superintendents have been here quite a while, but if it doesn't, if they don't last at least 2 years, we will come back and do the search again at no additional charge. So we kind of provide that continuity, and we're not going away after the search happens. We don't just walk away. We're here. We're CESA 12. Yeah, we're not going anywhere. We'll be a part of this. And also, we have used this throughout the state before. It's a process that are used statewide. Last year, we did 4 searches in CESA 12. So we did Ashland, Drummond, Mercer, and South Shore last year. So those are the most recent ones that we did. We also have a pretty good access to and I think that when you're looking at these districts up here, there's always a desire to do a statewide, national, regional search. What's the net that you're casting for your candidates? We feel like we're very connected to all of our schools and all the administrators. Between us that work at CESA 12, we work with all the administrators in CESA 12, which are probably likely your pool because this is coming up north is where people are from, tend to stay longer, and so if you're looking at that longevity, I think that's a big part of it. But we also are very connected statewide because we're connected to our CESA people who then would know all the administrators in their CESA. So it's a very tight network. We meet with our comparable people of other CESAs every month. So we have a very tight network of not only within CESA 12, but statewide as well. And a lot of districts have talked about going national, and they want to be national, and also they go with all these search firms that have this national net. And actually, There was a study done, and the search agency that had the average furthest net of people last year, doing searches, was actually CISA 12, because before we placed somebody from Oregon and we placed somebody from Minnesota were part of our 4. So if national's your thing, we actually do that too, or we did last year. And the final bullet point I would add is that we also, as part of the search process, we provide a year of executive coaching. And so what that means, as part of your fee at no additional charge, we have somebody who will come in and coach your new person for a year, meet with them monthly. They're paid, so it's not just a volunteer thing of, having coffee once in a while. It's actually a structured executive coaching process to support the person. So we're doing that this year as well too. So all of our new soups, and this would be part of the search process in the future, that you would have that executive coaching for a year. So again, a couple things just to keep that this is not a one and done deal. We don't do the search and walk away. There's kind of a long commitment to it. And so that's kind of a little bit about why CISA 12. I would also, just to give you a few highlights of what the process looks like. First of all, and if you did decide to go with us, we'd have to have a meeting and flesh out a lot. There's a lot of decisions you'd have to make, and there's also a lot of flexibility. There's a few ways you can go with a couple things, and that's up to you. We will recommend what we think works best and why. But if you feel like you maybe want to do something a little different, we definitely can talk about that. We're not just locked into something. But basically, the search activity is we would meet with you to lay out all the timelines, how long do we want to post it for, what's our interviews process, when are we looking to sign this contract, and kind of work your way back. And then also, what is the range of salary and benefits that you as a board are comfortable with, willing to consider, and we would pull together your comparables to give you a range as to what, in a sense, what do superintendents make? Because that's, I think, your comparable is what you have to look at, is what are other superintendents making in comparable districts in the state. There's a lot of things you can compare it to, but I think that's kind of the reference point. That's really what you probably want to most look at, and we will gather that information for you. We advertise the position. We will recruit candidates. We will try to do everything we can to get a good pool. Advertise it on the standard routes, and then also kind of informally try to find those people that might be interested and might be good fits. We will also survey your staff and your community to find out what are the attributes they're looking for. We can do that in a couple ways, but we would talk about specifically, but you'd want to get that, kind of in an efficient way as possible. And then we would collect, we would get the applications, we would take all that. So a lot of this, I think, is kind of take some of the paperwork stuff off Peggy, which you probably would rather do it yourself, but we'll help you out.
Thank
Your
you.
spare time.
I do.
Yeah. So we do all that, and so it isn't a clerical thing on your end. We take care of all of that. And then we would take a look at the candidates, we rate them, we decide who we want to interview, bringing a pool for the first round interview. And our process is we have the board do the first round of interviews, and from that select a pool of finalists. Usually we want at least 6 in the first round. We want at least 2 or 3 in the second round. We can talk about that. And then the second round, you would pull together your committees of staff, community, and the board to interview those finalists. We would facilitate all of those groups at every step of the way. I would be with the board, helping you facilitate this process, just making sure that Brian doesn't ask a question that he's not supposed to or something like that.
Could happen.
Yeah, I would be on him. And then the other consultants from CISA 12 would run the other groups, same thing. Make sure they're done accordingly. We would pull together questions for you to consider. If you have any, we would want to make sure those are asked, and we would again pull together all of that for you as well. We have recommendations for everything, so you don't have to create anything, but you certainly have the ability to modify it or add to it as fits your needs or wants or what you think would be part of this process. So based on the finalist interviews, then you'd have the committees present to you what their thoughts were of the finalist candidates, and then you would make a decision. We typically have also, within the parameters set by the board, done the negotiation of the contract with that finalist candidate to kind of give you a little bit of a space with that kind of more difficult thing, so that when you're starting with that person, it's a little more fresh, because sometimes that can be a little bit of something that could be somewhat uncomfortable. But we take care of that, make sure it's done the right way and within the parameters that you set. So you still drive it, but we just take care of that work for you. And then, like I said, once the candidate is selected, we would do the press announcements and meet and greets, et cetera. But then have the executive coaching the following year. And if somehow that great process and that executive coaching still don't, for whatever reason, keep the person here, we'll back and we'll do it all again to support and, to make sure that you have that. But we would have I think the point of it is we would have a stake in the outcome as well. We would want a good person to be here. And I think somebody that fits Northwestern, which I think we may have a bit of an insight on as well. At least we're not going in at cold as we do the process. Yes, sir.
It may be inappropriate. You can do all this for the number that we're seeing here?
Yes.
Who would be the person you'd be dealing with here?
Well, probably a little bit, Peggy, in terms of just the logistic things.
Right.
Yeah. There wouldn't need to be a ton, but we would mostly, we'd probably, touch base with Peggy. She's used to that. And just keeping the process and making sure that we have the logistics of, how do we want the room set up? How do we want the interview? There's a few logistical things in that, but the point would be we would try to do most of that ourselves and not put too much on the person. Typically we have, like, my secretary comes and greets the people, so we don't need anybody here for that. So it's pretty much turnkey when we have those events that you don't need other people here. We pretty much have our people here to do that.
I'd just be concerned that the board isn't left out, like maybe the board president would be.
Yeah, well, yeah, there'll be communication, and a lot of it's all done with I would be definitely talking, with Dana, and I think the point is that a lot of the work is done. We're trying not to put it on you, but you drive it, you make the decisions. It's your call. You have control over it, for sure.
Any other questions?
Just curious, how many candidates were out there, let's say for the South Shore position?
Yeah, so last year, and we actually did 2 searches in July. So that was a lot of recruiting. And we also, because we do this with so many other, consultants, so we're connected to all of them around the state. You're not looking at huge numbers. You're looking at, 8 to 12 candidates. I know like De Pere, which is a pretty wealthy district, South Green Bay, one of the top ones. I think they had like 8 candidates. We didn't do that search, but so there's not going to be a ton that are just going to fall into your lap, like back in the day when we hired FIDA teachers and get 200 applicants. So it is the recruitment and is a big part of this, and going out, talking to people, giving them tours, driving them around the districts. We did a lot of that. I did a lot of that. And to get as many people as possible. I feel like, you want that pool to be as big. And so that's where, there's a lot of recruiting that goes on. You need one. Right?
Ashland was much earlier.
Mm-hmm.
How many did you have for Ashland?
I think, that was in about, I don't remember, but somewhere in that 8 to 12 range. Yeah, it wasn't like 30, but again, none of the searches had more than, I don't think anybody had more than 15 for anything. So yeah, so when you're looking through these applicants to get it to that initial 6, you're likely to not, to have to spend hours wading through piles of resumes. It's going to be a pretty good process, but again, we look at it as we want to get that candidate pool as big as possible. So that's why we are trying to recruit and go out there. And I think it's a lot of the search firms will tell you they have this candidate pool, like this stable of people that they're just willing to. I don't buy that. I wouldn't say we have that. I don't think anybody does. They'll sell you that if you want to pay them $20,000, that's why, because they have that. But I think, you're going to try to recruit people. You're going to try to find people. I think this is a very good position. I think this is an attractive position. So I do think you will get a pretty good applicant pool, and you're early as well. So, yeah.
You, because we're so close to Minnesota, or based off of what I've read here, it looks like you are staying for the most part exclusively the state of Wisconsin, but Minnesota being, I mean, it's way easier.
And we
I
can,
mean, you're
Yeah.
you could stay somebody from Eskimo as an example, which is 45 minutes away, or you're gonna get somebody from Superior, which is 4.5 hours away. So, I mean, do you either stay with the designed Wisconsin, or as soon as you were to catch Minnesota as an example, you then open that up to what's be considered a nationwide search?
well, I think, if people from two things. One, I think, first of all, I think you gotta remember that your superintendents are people that have experience for the most part. Even though we placed somebody from Minnesota last year, because they have experience in a state, they probably don't want to switch retirement systems and jump to another state. So there's a pretty big incentive to stay in state for people for that reason. So that's where Wisconsin is your more likely pool. If people, I think, from Minnesota are actively looking, which most of them probably are, they're probably checking those websites. They know which ones to look at as well. That said, I'm actually leaving here to go to Minneapolis, meeting with people in my roles in Minnesota from the Midwest. And part of the reason I'm going is for this reason, is that I know a couple of the ESA people in Minnesota. So I'm trying to build those connections myself. So for this reason, so funny you should ask. But that's kind of why we're trying to build that to see, because I want to be able to not so much recruit, which is important too. And I think we can address that, but I also want to be able to have those connections to do background, and I want to be able to know who we're hiring. So,
And one more question regarding the 2-year thing. Most administrative contracts within our district are a 2-year term. So I would assume we're gonna hire somebody, have a 2-year contract, and if memory serves me correct, if that person were to not work out, you can either do a non-renewal for the second year, or I guess you finish your 2 years and then you go, but we would be searching for a new one if we chose that prior to that. Would that still qualify under that less than 2 years? Or is it contract to contract, because the contract would end up renewing after, essentially 2 years of the day? You know what I mean?
yeah, it would be for the 2 years. So if they stayed 2 years, that's what the guarantee is for. And I don't think you'll get another search firm that'll give you that. They'll usually
I was
just
just
say,
asking.
yeah. So I think it would be if they serve the full 2 years, that's what the guarantee is for.
Okay.
As far as board seeing every single applicant, it sounds like they don't. It sounds like.
No, they will.
screen.
Yeah, we'll screen and we'll have them, and we'll have a meeting where we would look at them together.
Okay, so they would get to see all of them and then have
Yes.
them and, okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or information you want? Well, we thank you.
It sounds like you're pretty flexible. If we wanted to be part of it as much as we want, we could, or not.
Yeah. I think that first meeting will take a little bit of time to go through all this. This is just kind of an overview of the process, so you know what it would look like. It's not written in stone. It's certainly malleable. I think the big thing is that we do it. We're here with you the whole way, and hopefully guiding you as to make sure that why you do things a certain way. But there's not just one way to do this. But I think you got to have a way to work from, so you're not just shooting in the dark on this. So that's kind of it. But yeah, it's not.
If we were to decide as a board that we wanted to start the search on our own, and we don't see a result that we're looking for, I assume we can come to you after said decision and go, we'd like to use your services at this point.
Yeah, I guess I haven't thought about that.
Well,
So
no, it's just a
yeah.
cost point, and we talked about this last month because we had, I think Sherry had, or Mrs. Wilson had actually gotten some information on various different certs, CISA being one, and I think there were WASB being another one, and seeing what those cost differences were. So it was a discussion that we had. So, I mean, I don't think this is a lot of money in the grand scheme of what we're talking about. So I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
I think we had.
You can hire us anytime, right? That's, yeah.
I mean, you were doing it in July.
I guess
We're in
that's,
November, and the whole thing could be done by February, and you still are early.
well, I guess that's what I'm implying.
Yeah, and I think it's more than just, I mean, recruitment is certainly a part of it. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know who you didn't get, who you got. But certainly the hiring process is a big part of this as well. Going through the interviews, going through that whole process, screening people. I think that's a big part of it as well. Finding out what's really the background of that person. I think we have a lot of, so it's not, there's a lot of pieces to this, a lot of parts to that step that I think, you want to consider when you're.
Well, there was a lot to it. I mean, I personally, I liked all the stuff after the hire as well, the services that are provided afterward. It looked appealing.
Right?
I'd like to say, number one, incredibly good job. I mean, very well laid out. I can't imagine for the price that we can even come close, and there's a number of things in here that you've done. We've never done this before. Some of us have been through the process, but I can't even imagine us trying to do this by ourselves and hitting all the spots, legally and all the different things that go along with it. So I thank you for presenting it in a very clear way, and I mean, it's I think incredibly good option.
Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you for.
Anything from Gail?
Go ahead.
Oh, Gail, you have anything you want to,
No, I'm glad with Dr. Madison's report, so thank you.
your report has been approved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you want me to stay for any part of the meeting more?
No, I think we've got all the information, so.
Okay. I didn't know, I mean, I can.
Yeah, this was just an informative for the meeting, so I think we're good. So if you need to head to
I was, but I
Annapolis,
could stay too. so
we
I'm not
won't
in a
keep
hurry.
you.
Yeah, whatever your pleasure is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the report from the September 27th, 2022 Buildings, Grounds, Transportation Committee. On that committee are myself, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Granlund. I can just briefly say the gist of it, and then you two can maybe add if I forget anything crucial. Basically, the item on the agenda for us was to review the parameters for usage of the high school electronic sign. And the Northwestern High School Administration provided the parameters and rationale for the electronic sign. Basically, in a nutshell, that the message board would reference activities and events that are directly sponsored by Northwestern High School. This refers to the Northwestern High School sign, of course, that is located on the corner of school property at Highway 2. We looked at many reasons for why we felt that we want to be sure to honor what the donor wanted, and that we also wanted to be sure that we were consistent and fair and not get into a situation where we might not have consistency. We figured this would be the best way. And I'm not sure if I'm leaving any.
Well, we talked a little bit about the management of all the information also, where, if our staff is required to manage information from multiple sources, that can get to be a big deal.
Answer questions about
Yeah.
things that it's not even our
Right,
activity.
so it's really a practical matter for our staff to be able to say, hey, this is what it's for, and they don't have to go into a lot of other things that are not needed. It can always be looked at in the future also and revised and stuff.
No, I went into the meeting kind of on the side of the community being able to put things on there, but I came out of the meeting satisfied with the rationale that Mr. Carlson, Mr. Smith had, and I agreed with them. So.
We do need a motion and
Just to approve the report.
to just, I'm sorry, yes, to just approve the report that we've given you and a second. And then, of course, if there's any more discussion or questions.
Motion to approve the buildings grounds transportation report.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Gail. Okay, we have a request from the FFA for up to 6 students to attend the overnight field trip National FFA Convention in Indianapolis, Indiana from October 25th to the 29th, 2022.
So hi, I'm Sheila Gergerson. I am the vice president of our chapter here for Northwestern FFA. We are asking your permission to go October 25th through the 29th to Indianapolis, Indiana to attend the National FFA Convention. We went to state convention last June in Madison. It was a lot of learning, and we got to watch a lot of awards be given out for different agricultural purposes and attend different workshops to help us be better leaders. And now we're doing that on the national level. So our school gets a chance to be represented at the national level in Indianapolis. Some of the things that we're going to be doing there, there's a big college fair and job fair that will be happening with big name companies from across the United States, such as Toyota, Ford, Chevy, Case International Harvester, Caterpillar, and they are going to also have some Division I schools like Purdue and Cornell. Purina for like dog food, New Holland, Ram Trucks, and Wrangler are just few, and it's a big convention. It's very spread out, and that's just only a handful of how many companies are going to be there. We also get a chance to hear some speakers. Tamika Catchings, which is a WNBA star, and we also get to hear Cody Back, who was a former national officer for the FFA. So it'll be interesting to hear from them and their leadership at the different events. We also get to attend the National Day of Service. So FFA is all about service and getting our communities involved. This year they're doing a book drive, and they're also making travel book pillows for kids that are in like low income communities that might not get as much exposure to books and things like that. And then we are also doing like a pet toy drive for different animal shelters around Indiana. We also get to attend student workshops that help us develop our leadership skills, our mentorship skills. We get to meet different people and find friends in agriculture. There's gonna be different entrepreneurship opportunities, also money management, which will help a lot of us that are going off to college next year. Problem solving and networking. We also are going to visit the Ozark Fisheries Goldfish Farm and learn about different goldfish and how they are produced. We also are going to tour Purdue University. So we can kind of get out of our brains of Wisconsin for national tours of colleges and things like that. So we would ask your permission to let us go on this trip. It would be greatly appreciated. And when we come back from the trip, we are doing a presentation for all the agricultural classes that Mr. Nyhus has to like share what we learned, and hopefully we can bring it into our elementary and our middle school communities so that we can expand FFA beyond the high school and get the younger kids involved as well. So thank you.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
First of all, I hope John Deere shows up. But
They
you
are
didn't
gonna be
mention
there.
it.
They will be
Okay,
there. They
all
will
right.
be there. Yeah.
Glad to know that. And next, could each of you tell us what your names are and where you live?
I'm Isabel Dahl, and I just live in Maple down Highway 13.
I'm Asher Gilderman, and I live in Poplar, sort of on the off-road P.
Yeah.
I'm Mr. Nyhus. Never mind, it's not an off-road at all. It's one of the
It's a Coolidge Highway.
Sheila talked about some of the things that we're going to participate in when we're down there. I guess I get to talk about the logistics of it. So this is the first year that we are planning on going since 2019. There was a little hiccup a few years in there. So the plan again is to do what we did back then. And so leaving Tuesday afternoon, the 25th, we're going to take a school van down to Spooner High School. The van then will sit there, and then we'll get onto a coach bus. And we're going to join a coach bus with 7 other schools from the northwestern area of Wisconsin, drive down to the northern suburbs of Illinois that first night, spend the night there. Get up bright and early then on Wednesday morning, drive to Purdue University. They have an aquaculture center there, which is, for those that don't know, fish farming. And they're one of the big research universities on fish farming. And it's kind of unusual to think of Indiana, a landlocked state, being a big place for farming fish. From Purdue, we're going to drive then to Indianapolis, stopping at Ozark Fisheries, which is it might still be the largest goldfish, koi, aquarium fish breeding center in the U.S. Again, in Indiana, and so they got lots of ponds and things there, and so we'll get a little bit of insight on that side of things. Arriving then Wednesday evening at Indianapolis, and then spending then that evening, Thursday and Friday there, and then coming back late Friday night.
That's a lot to pack in.
It is, and it's a really fun trip for them. So one of the things about National FFA Convention is the largest youth gathering in the country. And so back 2019, it was about 60,000 high school students. All have their blue corduroy jackets on with their state labeled on the back. And so one of the fun things that I'm going to ask them is they get a signature book and try to find someone from all 50 states in order to say hi and get a signature.
Get an A+.
Get an A+. They get to go down there and they get to interact with, again, students from all over the country, all the different accents from the U.S. is one of the fun things to hear too.
And I love the fact that you're bringing it down to the elementary and middle school for a feeder program, just like the sports teams do, so.
That is one of our goals for this year, yes.
That's a great idea.
This is Gail. I make a motion to approve this fabulous. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. Mike, did you want to make a comment first?
Before I second it, I'll make a comment. I'm probably the only one that is familiar with Tamika Catchings. But the Northwestern does have a graduate from here that went to Purdue and graduated, Jessica Lee, class of '99. So there's that history. You'll be on the TV on RFD.
Oh.
I don't have direct TV anymore. But you should watch that so you can see our students, but they must have been out in the hall or something. I don't know. Well, how many kids go to?
Well, there's 60,000 there in Indianapolis.
Yeah,
So we are in, the name of the stadium is going to slip my mind, but it's the Indianapolis Colts stadium. So however many that fits, and it's, aside from the end zone chairs, it's fairly packed in there.
People don't realize how big it is. And supervision, or is it you?
Yeah.
Okay. 6. Is that adequate? 6.
And it's what I've done in the past. And so again, I'm in charge of our 6 there. We do go on the coach bus, and so there'll be 7 other advisors, adults on that. With we're each in charge of our own students, but we go down as a group.
These 3 look like rowdy ones.
We're gonna be too busy to.
Tire you out.
We are only at the hotels to sleep, as I tell them, because we go. So.
And with that, I'll second the motion.
All right, I have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right, we have Start College Now Early College Credit Program for spring 2023, and you should have the students and the requests enclosed in your packet.
This was, if I recall, last year, the college credits, there was a fee to each of the students, right?
Yes.
I mean, that was
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the Start College Now Early College Credit Program for spring 2023.
With the exception.
With the exception.
One for outlined in the summary. Right?
With the exception of
Gail,
the one.
second.
I have a motion and a second, and I need to take a roll call vote for this because it is money. So Mr. Glonick,
Yes.
Mr. Landwehr,
Yes.
Ms. Olson,
Yes.
Ms. Sari,
Yes.
Mr. Granlund,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. Motion carries. Okay, next item is the 66.30 cooperative agreement with South Shore.
I would like to say I thank you for the breakdown.
You bet.
I don't remember, maybe I just don't remember, but I don't always remember seeing that in previous ones, so thank you very much.
Any questions or discussion on that? And if not, I need a motion.
This would be a roll call.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the cooperative agreement
Revision.
revision.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second, and then, go ahead.
I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Okay.
That difference of 20 to 40% is that
Unless
is that really attributed to that one student that moved?
2 students that moved, needing services, 1 extra day, and because they'd only contracted with us for 1 day, now they need 2 days because of 2 students that
Okay.
moved out.
And we're still gonna be able to,
Take care of our own? Yeah,
with 60%?
absolutely. And we did last year, but we had students, and they had other students that took up.
So part of that other equation of Mr. Landwehr is that we do have an occupational therapy assistant to 4 days a week here.
Oh, okay.
We always have,
Yeah, we always have. So it's not just,
Not just the
just that
occupational.
person, right?
yes,
Okay.
that's part of the equation.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve?
Okay,
We already
there
have
was
a motion.
already a motion, and
And a
there was a second.
Oh, okay, good.
I think, who was the motion? Did you get that? Ms. Janigan?
I was a secretary,
Ms. Janigo?
I was a second.
That's, yeah.
Okay, all right, so now we
Mrs.
need to do a
Olson
roll
and
call.
then Mr.
Mr.
Johnson.
wasn't Mr. Grant.
Right.
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Glonick,
Yes.
Mr. Landwehr,
Yes.
Mrs. Olson,
Yes.
Ms. Sari,
Yes,
Mr. Granlund,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion carries. 2021-22 budget revisions.
This one's me. Hopefully you got this document here. Ms. Janet will pass it out just before the meeting, so. This is an annual requirement, and the document that you have here is provided by our auditors, and it's in relation to budgeted versus actual expenses for past budget years. First series of numbers would be on the left side of the columns here, represent the final budgeted numbers that were loaded with PPI after the tax levy last school year. And the numbers on the right represent the actual expenses. So the budget amount is for $15,974,580. We expensed $18,042,329. That dollar differential is in relation to a number of different things. You see the summary paragraph there. There were some additional salary increases. We talked about mental health and guidance counselors. That was part of that equation too. We had a number of buildings and grounds projects that took place over the last year. Previous budget year, there was a district-wide energy efficiency audit. There were some water systems upgrades for NES middle school, and the big one is the construction project at Volleyball. You've seen NES where we converted the stage NES into 2 functional classrooms, which are used every day. In terms of that, so there's a little summary there with regards to that. I want to note that these dollar differentials are partially offset by federal revenue, so this is some of the extra dollars that are available to help us do some of this work. This is an annual process, and I believe this document needs board approval. Ms. Janet, correct me if I'm wrong, it is a roll call. That just short of $16 million budgeted amount. Yep. Are the ESSER funds that were received in addition to that dollar amount, or is that included in that 16? So part of it is the whole building. So again, this is historical data. It's data from really last year.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Granlund, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. We need a roll call. Mr. Glonick,
Yes.
Mr. Landwehr,
Yes.
Mrs. Olson,
Yes.
Ms. Sari,
yes,
Mr. Granlund,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Motion carries.
state equalization aid. This is the second major part of the equation for a revenue limit, which determines the majority of revenues that our district receives. The equalization aid, with, in addition to the local tax levy, basically is about 80+% of our district funding. For those who don't know, that revenue limit formula is it's an inverse relationship. So the more money that we get in equalization aid drops the tax levy, and vice versa, but it does not necessarily impact our total amount. It's the more money you put in on the front end, the less money you take out of the back end. So that's a lot based off of our equalized values, which is determined by the part of the revenue. So essentially this item, once the state provides the district that number, Dr. Tony and I need the authority of the board to set the allowable tax levy per the revenue limit formula as provided by DPI, the Department of Public Instruction. So if we didn't do this, we'd have to call a special board meeting to finalize that. So I guess we're ultimately asking for the board's permission to set that tax levy based on the aid certification provided by DPI this Friday.
I need a motion.
Any questions that I can answer?
And questions if you have any.
Typically that the total revenue limit would be raised every year.
So yeah, the short answer is that yes, we've had basically a zero increase for the last 2 budget years. So what would be last year and this fiscal year, the state will start the 23-25 budget process in the upcoming months. As you're probably all aware, there's elections going on. That stuff will work itself through, and then I believe the state legislature will start working on what might happen with school funding at the state level. I do not have an answer on that at all at this point in time, but yes, we've seen basically a 0% increase over the last 2 years from the state level.
And we're fairly confident that that is going to be zero again this year.
We already know it.
We already know it's going to be zero. From the state legislature, they've indicated that. Awesome. So, yeah, the unfortunate truth is that we're all feeling it. The cost of doing business continues to rise, whether it be fuel cost, energy cost, all of that, we're all feeling. So that's kind of where we're at with it. We want to set that to the allowable limit to operate for the 23-24 school year, or 22-23 school year.
Any more questions? I need a motion.
Motion to approve is first.
Do I have a second? Second. A motion is second, and this is another roll call vote. Mr. Glonick.
Yes.
Mr. Lambert.
Yes.
Ms. Olson.
Yes.
Ms. Sari.
Yes.
Mr. Granlund.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries. Next are some policies. We have, first of all, new, which is number 0161, Parliamentary Authority. Then revised, we have number 1213, 3213, 4213, which is Student Supervision and Welfare. Number 1421, 3121, 4121, Criminal History Record Check and Employee Self-Reporting Requirement. Number 2260.02, Services for Bilingual Students, English Learners. Number 3120.04 is Employment of Substitutes. Number 5113 is Open Enrollment Program, Interdistrict. Number 7440.01 is Video Surveillance and Electronic Monitoring. And number 8146 is Notification of Educational Options.
So what you would do is you would approve all of the revised. You would not approve the first reading of the parliamentary procedure, because that will come back to you next month at a second reading, because that's the only new one.
So the revised don't need it.
The revised do, the new does not.
The revised,
Right.
the revised don't need us another reading.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, that's the question.
So I do need a motion to approve the revised.
Yes.
Make that
Motion
motion.
to approve the revised.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving into the administrative report, communications, Dr. Tony.
Yes, this is hot off the press, I think Friday. Notification that the district has received the alcohol and other drug abuse grant written by Student Services Prevention Wellness Team for Northwestern High School. Jenny Forsythe heads that up for $15,000. Short-term borrowing on bids, Mr. Fetchel-Cotter?
Yeah, so each year we have to borrow short-term, because our expenses for the most part are fairly stable, but our revenues are not. They come in big chunks, so there's peaks and valleys there. So short-term borrowing allows us to cover those expenses so we can pay bills and make payroll, what it really boils down to. So we work with bonding consultants and bonding attorneys, so this process goes out to bid. Those bids went out the first week in October. We had a fairly easy decision to make because we had one company that came back on the bid. It was Northland Securities, Inc. They're out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. For the total amount was $2,960,000 at a net interest rate of 4.09%. So this money will go into, that interest rate's a lot higher than what we paid last year, but as you've all probably heard and found, that our interest rates continue to rise. So that money, once it's signed off on, will go into our LGIP account, which is basically an account that allows us to earn some of the interest back to help offset those costs. That's the report week. Last board meeting, obviously, a resolution. We can do that, but there's where we're at. We have one bidder, which
What if we had zero?
I don't really think about that, to be completely honest with you.
It's scary though.
It is.
And this is almost, did you say 4 times as much as what we paid last year?
It's over 4 times as much.
Over 4 times.
In terms of interest rates right now. Last year, I think we had 5 bidders, which I don't have a lot of history. I think that was the most. I did talk to our bonding consultants, and said it's a little bit of a reflection of the volatility in the market right now. It's not unique to us. You see it across a number of different municipalities, school districts, that investors aren't necessarily jumping at these opportunities as much as they were in the past.
Can I ask what an LGIP account is?
That's a nice short term for local government investment pool. So it's basically a short term investment pool that municipalities and school districts have access to, and we're able to earn interest on the money that's there for a little bit of time. So it's Wendy, you can speak to that if you want to, since it's your wheelhouse. It's a short term investment where we're able to make some of that money back in interest. So this is, it's an annual borrowing. We have to pay last year's short-term borrowing here in the next 2 weeks, and we'll pay it by October 17th. So this money will come in, and then we'll make the payment to pay last year's short-term borrowing will go out.
So in order to not do this every year, we'd have to have a tax levy of 3 million.
We'd have to have a healthy fund balance.
Right.
To be completely honest with you, some districts do have a fund balance where they can cover those peaks and valleys. We are not that low.
You want to, if there are no more questions, you can move right into pupil count if you'd like. Open enrollment report.
Any questions on short-term borrowing from anybody just before I move on? Pupil count, I think you guys have the sheets in front of you. We're required to twice a year count our students, so what we call the third Friday September count and the second Friday January count. And the sheet has a whole bunch of numbers on there. There's what we call the head count, which is the total, aka the number of students that are basically attending our district. So that's, right now that count as of third Friday in September was 1,295. The next column over there is the non-resident reductions. These are our open enrolled students into us. So we have approximately, not approximately right now, 151 students open enrolled to us. Those students are subtracted out. The state pays that in a little bit different scenario, so we do get funding for that, but it's not part of this formula or part of our count. Resident additions, so that number there is 107 as you see. These are students that live in our district but are open enrolled out of our district. So if you look at our open enrolled numbers in versus out, we're plus 44 on the give take, which is a positive. We have more students coming in than we have going out. The students that we have going out, it's a number of different factors. Some of them are online learners. Some of them have enrolled into online charter schools. Some of them have never been a part of our district for whatever reason. There's a whole laundry list of stuff in terms of that. So really what we call the resident count is 1,251. And then we basically put that into what's called an FTE because our younger students, our 4K students, our early childhood special education students don't count as a full FTE because they're not here every day of the week as our other students are. So positive on this too, we had a 40 FTE in our summer school program, which I'm being told is the highest we've ever had. So that accounts to 16 FTE. So our total membership for revenue limit purposes there listed as 1,223, which is down 20 from this time last year. Total across the district. So part of that is we had a large group of seniors. We had a class of over 100, I think 113 graduate last year roughly, and that's being followed up with about 85-ish students coming in. So as you see there, the general trends are classes of 100 plus are mostly at the upper grade levels. Classes of 85, 90-ish are all kind of the general trend that we see in terms of enrollment. So like I was at a state meeting here a couple weeks ago, and the unfortunate truth, approximately 75% of districts across the state are declining enrollment, and about 25% are on the other end of that equation. Overall, there's fewer students in general across the state. Whatever factors, typically people are having less kids. But the suburban, urban districts are getting a little bit bigger, the rural districts are getting smaller. That's a general trend, not unique to us, but kind of across the state of Wisconsin. So these numbers are very important because it drives the revenue limit. It's the biggest factor that drives the dollars that we get to operate with. The fact of the matter is, the fewer students you have, the less dollars you have to operate.
We've actually been pretty fortunate over the historically, the last 30, 40 years. We haven't gone down that much.
We've kind of planed out, for lack of a better term.
We got a little bit less, but I mean, there's schools that are 40, 50, 60% less than they were years ago.
And all it works is there's a 3-year rolling average, so that's in place to help with dips and decline in enrollment or massive increases for whatever reason. So these numbers aren't necessary. So we're not riding the roller coaster where we're up 50 kids one year trying to make a plan and we're down 30 kids the next. And so it does somewhat average out and why that formula exists. But as a general rule, we want as many students coming through our doors as possible because that's what drives our revenues.
Okay, did you want to keep moving into maintenance report?
I can't answer all the questions on this. So you have the maintenance update, general maintenance out of all of our buildings. I just want to give a quick update on our boiler project at the high school here. Stack Brothers has been in here. They've removed our obsolete, non-working boiler. All of that is out. They've done most of the piping, or basically all the piping work that they can do. So they're prepped to plug in one of the new boilers. I talked to the program lead today, and as far as we know, we're still scheduled to get delivery, or they're still scheduled to ship sometime towards the end of October here. So we've been holding off on firing the boiler in this building for as long as we possibly can because it'll be our only one for at least what we hope is a short period of time. That project as far as we know, will commence towards the first part of November, and it won't just be plug it in and go. It's gonna be a couple of weeks to do the work that needs to happen there, so.
So if somebody doesn't come in time, we're gonna have a series of ugly sweater days.
Yes.
Snow suits.
So it's all gonna work out, that's what I keep telling myself. It's all gonna work out. So,
Dan Erickson of Arrowhead Printing donated the new signage for the football press box. Ann Prell of Iron River has donated $445 in memorial of her husband, Howard Prell, to be used strictly for building projects by the tech ed classes. Howard was a tech ed teacher, principal, and director of curriculum and grants coordinator for the district. We received a $500 donation from Judy Guitar to be split for $250 for the Angel Fund for NES and $250 for guidance department at NES. A donation of $100 was received from Judy White of Maple for the Angel Fund. The Young Athletes Foundation sent the NHS cross country team 8 shoe vouchers valued at $100 each for a total of $800. Lake Nebagamon Presbyterian Church donated $1,000 to NES for school supplies and lunches. Julie Isaacson donated folders, paper, pencils, calculators, colored pencils, binders, rulers, glue, Sharpies, and highlighters to NES. First Presbyterian Church in Lake Nebagamon donated $1,190 to be used for needy children in our schools. That's a new one since the enhancement went out. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Olson, with the WASB correspondence and legislative report.
Okay, all I have is the update for Jill Underly, who is the state superintendent of public instruction, who is not up for re-election this year, has submitted the DPI 23-25 state budget requests for funding public schools and libraries. This is the official beginning of the state budget process for public schools, as this request sets the marker that the next governor will work from in proposing his budget early next year. DPI is requesting $2.5 billion in its 23-25 biennial budget. Requests include, but are not limited to, creating predictable and sustainable funding, increase diversifying and strengthening the educator pipeline, addressing student mental health and expanding support to students, establishing strong foundations of learning, ensuring Wisconsin students have access to healthy meals, and strengthening Wisconsin public libraries and lifelong learning. That's it.
Thank you. Next is
I have nothing to report, but you can talk to Mr. Kalanick.
Yep, no, yeah,
Oh, that's right, we
I
need to change that.
yeah, on mine it's correct though.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Okay.
Mine is.
But thank you. CESA 12 report, Mr. Kalanick?
Yep, I was gonna make Dr. Madison stay, but. So, yes, so CISA will be starting to provide executive coaching to new superintendents this year. That's a new thing to have. CISA 12 has approximately $250,000 of funding from Department of Health Services. They'll disperse this up to the districts to help them offset costs related to school nursing services. Any additional costs that may have come addressing the pandemic needs. Some of the building update stuff. They review the process that the Board of Control will need to undergo. CISA staff have looked at additional properties in Ashland, and I think the next meeting, they're going over Board of Control to get approval at some of the stuff they looked at. That's all.
Thank you. Student staff community recognition,
We don't have any this month,
okay.
other than what our kids have done.
Yep, we'll get to that. So the reports from the high school and the high school athletics and activities, as well as the middle school and the Northwestern Elementary and Iron River Elementary schools, as well as the Director of Special Education, district counselors, are located in our packet. And now we're gonna hear from Ms. Kyle and Mr. Jarman for the student board representative information.
So we can start off with our big thing this week was homecoming. We won against the Barron Bears, 62-0. We had a bunch of fun with the homecoming activities throughout the week, the court games, the Macho Man volleyball, and the powder puff, which the seniors won both the Macho Man and the volleyball. The homecoming king and queen were Maddie Raymond and Andrew Burke. And then the band also had a great halftime performance. And then the girls golf team was also recognized during halftime for making it to sectionals this year as a team.
The band also played in the Bayfield Apple Fest yesterday, with an upcoming fall concert on October 24th and all conference band on November 1st. Football had a homecoming victory over Barron and plays on Friday this week in Bloomer. Cross country has had a successful season so far, and tomorrow we run in Barron for the conference title.
Going back to girls golf, our season has concluded. We did have a pretty good run this year, making it all the way to sectionals, which is the last step before state. Katie Kyle placed top 10 in the conference, and then we also had a pretty good turnout with 2 of our girls, I believe, placing top 15 at regionals down in St. Croix Falls.
Congratulations. Yeah.
So we have volleyball. They play tomorrow at home against Cumberland and Thursday in Chautauqua, and the playoffs are next week starting in Prescott. So they have a pretty good drive ahead of them, but they're doing pretty well, and the girls all seem really excited about how their season's going. For cheer, along with some of the football players, they performed their homecoming routine during an assembly on Friday. That's also part of our homecoming traditions. The guys always have a lot of fun with it, and there are some pretty good recordings out there of that. Drama competed against other schools performing their one-act play, Paper or Plastic, and they made it on to the next round, which they are pretty excited about as well.
Chris Bowl is up and running. They're currently 1-0 due to a forfeit last week, and are competing again tonight. They're probably actually finished already. FCCLA has started their Thanksgiving basket drive, and FFA sponsored last week's Drive Your Tractor to School Day.
I saw those tractors.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did too. What's going on?
And then the football team is tentatively the Heart of the North Conference champions. It might be a tie, but it's looking pretty good.
Great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Do we have any comments from the audience? Doesn't look like it. So I need a motion for consideration to move to an executive session necessary for those items exempted under open sessions according to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 sub 1A FC. Included under this item are hiring and contract strategies for a new superintendent for 2023-24.
I so move.
Second.
I need a roll call vote. Mr. Plonick?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mrs. Olson? Mrs. Sari?
Yeah.
Mr. Granlund?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries.
Edge of our seats, waiting for you to.
I need a motion for an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn, Gail.
All right. Sorry, I need a motion. Do I have a second?
Like,
Okay. I have several seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.